Remove the veils, peek behind the curtains, and see what's really twerking. Televised lies and frequencies of confusion. We can't win for losing. Our grip on reality, infatuated with temporal things we see that pass away with the user. Eventually, look beyond the surface. When will you part back the curtains of your darkened minds to seek truth and righteousness? 'Cause we're running out of time. Floods, earthquakes, fires, droughts, and wars. AIDS, Ebola, West Nile, hepatitis, and SARS. Why no man take these things to heart? 'Cause the kings of the earth are mad and know not peace. Truth falls in the streets 'cause no one seeks beyond the surface. If you dare to be so bold, read about the God of Israel and the people he chose. All that glitters ain't gold. Look deep beyond the surface. Follow the light, it's worth it. It leads to something. Yahweh of hosts is his name. The source of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Yah.
Peace be unto you. My name is Tamar Yisrael, and you're watching Beyond the Surface. Have you ever wondered why wars and violence ravage the earth? Why do floods, earthquakes, drought, and wildfires kill thousands of people each year, causing damage to property in the millions? Why do homelessness, poverty, and disease exist amidst a society of opulence and great wealth? To find out the answers to these troubling questions, you must begin to look beyond the surface. What you see is not the truth. This world is a great illusion crafted by the master deceiver, Lucifer, the prince of darkness. In order to understand this great mystery, you must begin to open the third eye, the eye of divine consciousness. And this eye can only be opened by Yahweh, our Heavenly Father. Only then will you truly understand why there is so much trouble in the world. Beyond the Surface is a documentary formatted program designed to explore topics of interest regarding the end-time scenario, the New Age movement, technology and business and finance, science, ancient history, and who we are as a nation of people through narration, music, and graphics. We'll end the program with a segment called The Watchman that will warn you of evil and give you understanding of righteousness and truth. We hope you enjoy Beyond the Surface, so sit back and enjoy the program.
Paganism and the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games are a worldwide phenomenon. Every 4 years, these games are held in a different hosting city throughout the world. Most all countries send their best athletes to the Olympics to compete. The Olympics are touted to be an opportunity for peace amongst the nations and national bonding while creating an arena for friendly competition. They are seen as international goodwill, a confirmation of a country's sovereignty, acceptance in world's eye, and a way to build national pride. America, along with most all the other nations, has both enjoyed and promoted its popularity. America has hosted the Summer Games 4 times since its rebirth in 1896, twice in Los Angeles, once in St. Louis, and once in Atlanta. But if one were to research the history and the origins of this international sports competition, it would be found quickly that these games were never truly created for the pursuit of sport or camaraderie. With all of the Olympics' grandeur, regardless of its international appeal, The Olympic Games are undoubtedly Greek. Greek in origination, Greek in design, and most importantly, Greek in religion. The Olympics is not just sports mixed with pagan religion. The Olympics is pagan religion. The Olympics began about 776 BC, and only male Greek athletes who spoke Greek were allowed to compete upon penalty of death. Slaves and married women were not even permitted to watch the games. Women held their own games called Heraia in honor of the goddess Hera. The goddess Hera was made popular in modern pop culture through the TV show and comic book character Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman often prayed to her goddess Hera in times of trouble. The Olympic Games were the most important national festival of the ancient Greeks and a focus of Greek life. The ancient games were created to honor both Zeus, the chief god of the Greek religion, and to celebrate the rebirth of their dead mythological heroes. Even the name of the games was in honor of their gods. They believed that 12 ruling gods, called Olympiads, lived atop Mount Olympus, the highest point in Greece. This is why the ancient games were only held at Olympus, and the games were called the Olympics. In correlation to the Greeks' desire to infuse their beliefs into every aspect of life, they worked to devise a new calendar system, one that broke from the ancient biblical lunar calendar system and instead honored the sun god through a solar-based calendar system. This sun god was Apollo, who was the son of Zeus and also a fellow Olympiad. Since the lunar and solar systems do not directly coincide, various concessions had to be made. Ultimately, after years of calculations, they began at the start of the ancient games an 8-year calendar system called an octaris, that later was converted to a 4-year solar calendar where the 4-year periods were called Olympiads. Therefore, their New Year days occurred every 4 years. At the start of each new Olympiad, or New Year, the ancient Greeks celebrated this Olympic festival. This 4-year period in honor of Mount Olympus and their gods remains today, as well as America's use of the Greek philosophy of democracy and its use of the Olympiad or 4-year reign for America's kings, better known as presidents. Much of America's accepted ways are inspired or simply recreations of Greek ideals. The Hellenistic culture has intertwined with not only America, but worldwide ideals as well. The word Hellenistic is derived from the word Hellene, which was the Greek word for the Greeks. The Hellenistic age was the age of the Greeks. During this time, Greek culture and power extended itself across the known world. This Hellenistic age Hellenized the world, and it is still evidenced today through international literature, poetry, philosophy, drama, art, and of course, sport. The Olympics served as a major force in the Hellenization of both the ancient and modern world. One of the main ways that the Games did this was through the perpetual participation, training, and rallying of Greeks year-round in their various city-states. As the Greek military conquered various locales abroad, Greeks inhabited them and brought their love for their culture and their religion with them. After either training for or discussing the Olympics, these international Greeks would then return to Olympia to partake of the festivities. This return from many nations has always given the Games their international flair. This popularity created by returning Greeks initiated the need for a larger temple in Olympia to worship Zeus in. This new proposed temple followed the Temple of Artemis style and its fame. Upon the completion of the temple, it was further decided that for their pagan god of gods, that even a more intricate statue of Zeus should exist inside the edifice. The statue, Zeus, was 40 feet high and nearly 22 feet wide. Seated on an elaborate throne, his head nearly touched the ceiling of the temple. The throne was inlaid with many kinds of gems and metal and showed a multitude of animals. The statue was made out of wood and covered with gold and ivory. This sanctuary was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It is noteworthy to acknowledge that 3 of the 7 ancient world wonders are built in honor and in the likeness of Greek pagan deities. The Temple of Artemis is another of the 7 ancient world wonders. This sanctuary, dedicated to another of the Artemis Olympiads, was built before Zeus's temple and was in honor of the goddess Artemis. The temple served both as a marketplace and a religious institution. For years, the sanctuary was visited by merchants, tourists, artisans, and kings who paid homage to the goddess by sharing their profits with her. Recent archaeological excavations at the site reveal gifts from pilgrims, including statuettes of Artemis made of gold and ivory, earrings, bracelets, and necklaces, artifacts from as far as Persia. This goddess was also known by the Roman name of Diana. Their love for this pagan goddess was documented in the Bible. Acts 19:27 through 28. So that not only this our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worship. And when they heard these things, they were full of wrath, and cried out, saying, Great is Diana of the Ephesians. The last of the 7 ancient world wonders dedicated specifically to one of the Greek Olympiad gods is the Colossus at Rhodes. The Colossus at Rhodes was a bronze statue of Apollo, their sun god. It stood about 105 feet high. The Colossus at Rhodes was literally a colossal statue or very large statue located at Rhodes, Greece. This sun god, Apollo, was the son of Zeus. During Roman times, this sun god was referred to by the name Jupiter. The scriptures wrote of it. Acts 19:35. And when the town clerk had appeased the people, he said, You men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how that the city of the Ephesians is a worshipper of the great goddess Diana, and of the image which fell down from Jupiter? This monument at Rhodes is greatly paralleled by another famous colossal statue created centuries later, called the Statue of Liberty. A poem is inscribed at the base of the Statue of Liberty. It is dedicated to the goddess and is entitled The New Colossus. The title was a reference to the Colossus at Rhodes, which overlooked that Greek city's harbor, just as the Statue of Liberty overlooks the New York harbor and serves as a modern-day Colossus. Most people are not aware that the Statue of Liberty is a monument to a goddess named Liberty. This goddess is not a new deity. The Roman Republic built a temple to Libertas, the goddess of liberty, on Aventine Hill during the ancient times. Her face also appeared on the denarius, which was a Roman silver coin. According to the Bible, the denarius was a day's pay for a laborer. America is filled with pagan deities. There is another not so famous colossal statue in the southern U.S. It stands atop Red Mountain in Birmingham, Alabama. Its name is the Vulcan, the Roman god of iron and fire. It is the world's largest cast iron statue at 56 feet tall and is presently undergoing repairs. The Vulcan is situated in such a way that the entire city of Birmingham sits at the feet of this pagan deity. This type of forced homage or bowing at the feet of the image upon the entrance into the city is consistent with the ancient tradition being brought intentionally forward into modern society. Another Greek goddess that is honored in daily modern life is the goddess Nike. Nike is the winged victory goddess and was prayed to in hopes of victorious battles. Today, she adorns our daily dress. The Blue Ribbon Sports Footwear Company designed products in this goddess's name in hopes of achieving a victorious company. The swoosh logo at the side of each shoe is intended to represent the wing of the Greek goddess. Shortly after changing the sports shoes brand name, Nike quickly sought to connect the Greek deity's name with the Greek Olympics of the 1970s. Soon, most all of the Olympic athletes were seen wearing Nike shoes. After Nike was victorious at the Olympics, the company captured the American market through the use of national heroes like Michael Jordan of the NBA. The image of the goddess Nike appeared on the right hand of Zeus throughout ancient portrayals. At the Temple of Zeus, winged figures of victory also adorned the legs of the throne throughout ancient Olympic festivals. The ancient games were held during the summer and were arranged so that a full moon lit the festival in the third night. Like the modern games at the Olympic Village, the competing athletes had to arrive at Olympia a month before their start. The Olympic festival included the swearing ceremony, where the athletes had to swear an oath on a slice of boar's meat that they had not used magic to boost their performances. The swine was sacred to Artemis, the Olympiad goddess of childbirth and wild animals. This same swine is an abomination to the followers of the Most High God Yahweh. Deuteronomy 14 and 8 speaks upon this. And the swine, because it divideth the hoof, yet cheweth not the cud, it is unclean to you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcass. Also at the opening ceremony, the sanctuary of Olympia, where the ancient Olympic Games took place, a flame is burned permanently on the altar of the goddess Hestia. Using the heat of the sun's rays, a fire was created to light the cauldron. These fires were lit on the altars of Zeus and Hera to honor these Olympic gods. Prayers, singing of hymns, consultation of oracles, and animal sacrifices were also made. A similar practice to this ancient ceremony is duplicated every 4 years at today's modern games. On March of this year, 2004, widely reported by the media, the Olympic ceremony was held at an altar to goddess Hera. The torch was lit by a Greek high priestess. The priestess was one of 24 priestesses who participated in the ceremony. During the ceremony, the high priestess placed a silver torch inside a varnished steel concave mirror. As the sun's rays ignited the torch, the priestess stated that on that day that the Olympic flame would be reborn again to enfold the whole world in its light. During the ceremony, the high priestess spoke a prayer to the ancient Greek god Apollo, asking that he send his rays and light to light this sacred torch for their city of Athens. The sun's rays concentrated at the center of the recipient, they cause an intense heat which causes a flame to be obtained. The Olympic flame can only be lit in this way. As a precaution, on a sunny day before the official ceremony, a flame is lit according to this traditional method. In this way, even if the sun is not out on the day of the ceremony, the torch can be lit from the flame in the proper manner, which is kept in a security lamp. This modern-day Olympic pagan practice is repeated every 4 years and is accepted as tradition and not as paganism, surprisingly. Matthew 15 and 3 speaks upon just this. But he answered and said unto them, Why do you also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? The torch relay was never a part of the ancient games that took place every 4 years until 392 or 393 when Roman Emperor Theodosius abolished the games after Christianity took root and he deemed the games pagan. The games were revived in Athens in 1896 by a group led by a French baron and continued almost every 4 years. But the torch relay did not begin again until 1936 when the Germans chose to bring the Olympic flame and its ideals to Germany. As this began, the high priestess in Olympia passed the flame to the first runner who began the journey. The flame is carried by relay all the way to its final destination. Although it is carried by runners on foot, other modes of transportation are also used. Bicycle, car, train, horse, boat, canoe, etc. For air transportation, the flame is sheltered in a security lamp, similar to a miner's lamp. At nighttime, it is kept in special cauldrons. The highlight of the opening ceremony of the Olympics is the entrance of the Olympic flame into the stadium. The final torchbearer does a lap of the stadium before lighting the cauldron with the Olympic flame. This flame burns in honor of the Olympiad gods for the duration of the games and is only extinguished at the closing ceremony. The procession of the athletes is always led by the Greek team, followed by all other teams in alphabetical order in the language of the hosting country, except for the last team, which is always the team of the hosting country. Jeremiah 44 and 18 deals also with this. But since we left off to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven, or the Olympiad goddess Artemis, also known as, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things and have been consumed by the sword and by the famine. The only award for the winners in the Olympic Games was an olive wreath. This olive crown was important to the winners because of the pagan promises that the plant held. There were olive sacred groves called altis, planted adjacent to the Olympiad temples. The olive branches were cut with a golden sickle from these groves dedicated to the Olympiad gods, Zeus and Athena. The Greeks believed that the vitality of the sacred tree was transmitted to the recipient through the branch. Yahweh warned the Israelites of groves that are grown near his altar. Deuteronomy 16 and 21 speaks on this. You should not plant a tree. You should not plant thee a grove of any trees near unto the altar of Yahweh thy Elohim, which you shall make thee. Deuteronomy 12 and 3 also dealt with this. And you shall overthrow their altars and break their pillars and burn their groves with fire, and you shall hew down the graven images of their gods and destroy the names of them out of that place. This was followed by Chronicles 2, chapter 14, verse 3. For he took away the altars of the strange gods in the high places and brake down the images and cut down the groves. In addition to the Olympics' tremendous use of paganism intertwined with the games in their cultures, these ancient events and practices posed yet even more trouble for the true follower of Yahweh. We will return to the program after a short break.
Center is a resource and information center where you can find answers to many questions regarding the history of the cultures of the world. The goal of the Cultural Center is to reach the community with programs that educate, challenge, and inspire people. After years of development, the Cultural Center is poised to become the jewel of the South. For further information on this and other programs, visit the Cultural Center at 3901A Covington Highway in Decatur. For more information, call 404-286-5869 or visit online at www.thencci.com. Classes are held every Saturday at 1 p.m. Additional classes are held on Sundays at 11 a.m., Tuesdays at 8 p.m., and on Thursdays at 8 p.m. for sisters only. Visit the Cultural Center of NCCI. See the world from a different perspective.
Paganism and the Olympics continued. Created in 1914, the Olympic flag contains 5 interconnected rings on a white background. The 5 rings symbolize the 5 significant continents and are interconnected to symbolize the international competitions. The rings are blue, yellow, black, green, and red. The colors are chosen because at least one of them appears on the flag of every country in the world. At first sight, it seems reasonable to call the Olympic Games war games, yet they neither stop war nor are athletics valued as useful training for war. An ancient soldier spoke about whether athletes make good soldiers or not. He said, The athlete eats a lot, sleeps a lot, and trains regularly, while the soldier must endure lack of food and sleep and exert himself at irregular moments. When he became a general, this same soldier said that these men who are otherwise fit for war became through athletics too delicate for battle. Ancient Greeks would scoff at football, a modern Olympic sport, for in their Olympics there were no team games and no ball games. Athletics emphasized the individual, competing not against a stopwatch or any fixed standard, but seeking merely to beat the best man present. The ancient Greek Olympic Games highly promoted nudity, gore, violence, sodomy, and pedophilia. And just as all the other Olympic traditions have continued into modern society, so have these Olympic ills. The author of The Naked Olympics, Tony Peratt, wrote, "In terms of audience satisfaction, our own revived Olympic Games can hardly compare to the ancient games, unless they were to be combined with the Carnival in Rio, Easter Mass at the Vatican, and a tour of Universal Studios. Prostitutes were said to have made a year's wages in 5 days at the Greek Spectacular." Greeks were constantly in search of the ideal. Their ideal was a body capable of enduring all efforts, either of a race course or bodily strength. People were not judged solely on their minds, but rather strong emphasis was given to the body. This emphasis given to the body was given specifically for the nude body. It was commonplace for Greek men to exercise, go to war, and generally go about their daily business in the nude or very scantily clothed. The Olympic custom of constant nudity was evidenced through their art. Most often their gods are sculpted for display in the nude. This practice of nudity was even brought forward publicly in the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. Various popular magazines photographed the American athletes in the nude. This pagan practice was again seen only as tradition and said to be brought forward in the spirit of the ancient games. Photos were taken in many settings to show the variety of competition. The ancient athletes viewed nudity like a parade, an opportunity to showcase their ideal form. The modern athletes were promoted to view nudity similarly, but their photos showed much more restraint than their ancient counterparts. Ancient Olympians believed that the gods were present at the festival and took delight in the various contests and exercises. Olympic temple of Zeus, at which they sacrificed, was elliptical in shape and consisted of an elevated base approached by steps. The whole height of the altar was 22 feet. Considering the fact that the Olympic athletes wore little or no coverings or undergarments, the scripture written in Exodus 20:25 through 26 is even made clearer. "And if you will make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stone, for if you lift up your tool upon it, you have polluted it. Neither shall you go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness would not be discovered thereon." Surely this modern age has been affected by this search for the ideal body. The extreme makeovers that enlist the aid of plastic surgeons, often as the answer to all ills, as well as the quest to expose even more. This envelope is constantly being moved further towards the edge. The word gymnasium comes from the Greek root gymnos, meaning root nude. The literal meaning of gymnasium is school for the naked exercise. The goal of Greek education was the attainment of male perfection, both physical and mental perfection. This education took place in the gymnasium. The gymnasium was the center of every Greek town and served a far greater purpose than the modern gym. The gymnasium was an elaborate structure with many rooms, baths, hallways, and decorated with all sorts of artwork, including statues of gods and heroes. Philosophers, poets, and other intellectuals would come together in these places. Exodus 28 and 42 speaks to this. "And you shall make them linen breeches to cover their nakedness, from the loins even unto the thighs they shall reach." For the Greeks and the Olympic life, it was common social practice for adult males to indulge in sodomite pedophilia, while this same Greek man was still expected to marry and raise children. Most ancient Greeks lived openly bisexual and polyandrous lifestyles. Relationships between male adults was unusual and open to ridicule, while pedophilia was not. 1 Kings 14:22-24 states, "And Judah did evil in the sight of Yahweh, for they also built them high places and images and groves on every high hill, and under every green tree. And there were also Sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which Yahweh cast out before the children of Israel." Sports and games are inappropriate words for what the Greeks were up to at the Olympics. Competitive exercises were called agon, connected with the word agony. Gymnos, agnon, naked struggle, was athletic competition. Wrestlers would tear out their opponent's intestines, but eye gouging was banned. From a very young age, children all over the world devote their lives to their respective sport so that they can compete in the Olympics. In China, potential young children are actually taken from their parents and trained by the government. The parents are allowed to see them only 2 times a year. These games have become the god of these athletes. Little do they know that this god is Zeus. Neither do they realize that they are in effect sacrificing their own children. Ezekiel 16:21 speaks to this. "That thou hast slain my children and delivered them to cause them to pass through the fire for them?" How do we compare when we raise our boys to achieve no more than to be inducted into the NBA or the NFL? All of their training is single-focused at that one goal. Deuteronomy 6:2-7 also speaks to this. "That you mightest fear Yahweh thy Elohim, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, and you shall teach them diligently unto thy children, and shall talk of them when they sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." These are those things which we are to teach our children. These are those things that we should keep ourselves. Thank you.
Today, biblical and secular history shows that man has worshipped and served many things man believed to be sacred, and that people have deitized things on the earth, things in the earth, in the water, and in the universe. But I want to read some things to you out of the book of Genesis, Genesis chapter 6, and see what the Creator himself had to say about worshiping things that were conjured up by men and men's hand. In Genesis chapter 6 and verse 1 it said, "Then Yahweh said unto Moshe, Now shall you see what I will do unto Pharaoh. For with a strong hand he shall let them go, and with a strong hand he shall drive them out of his land. And Elohim spake unto Moshe and unto Aaron, and said unto him, I am Yahweh. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and to Jacob by my name Elohim Almighty. But by my name Yahweh I was not known unto them. And I have established also my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, whereof they were strangers." Now, I'm going to back up a little bit and see what else Moses had to say in another book up here in the book of Genesis. This is Genesis chapter 6, and I'm going to start this at Genesis chapter 6, and in Genesis chapter 6 and verse 1. It says, "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply upon the face of the earth, that sons and daughters were born unto him. Then the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they chose them wives of all whom they choose. And Yahweh said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 days. There were giants in the earth in those days, and after that, when the sons of Elohim came unto the daughters of men and bare them children, the same became mighty men, which were men of old, men of renown. And Elohim saw that wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented Yahweh that he made man upon the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Paganism was the reason the people of Eden were destroyed by the great flood. Yet after men began to multiply upon the face of the earth, man still resorted to worship and serve pagan deities that was conjured up in the minds of men. During the early Egyptian era, the Africans worshipped the sun, the moon, the stars, and held many other things to be sacred. This is why the plagues that was visited upon the land of Egypt during the deliverance of our people, the children of Israel, those plagues were mostly visited upon things that the Africans held sacred. In other words, they were visited upon the God of the Africans simply because they were pagans, just like they are today. Now, in Exodus 19, we were warned of some things, and let me read some things that took place here once Yahweh delivered our people out of the land of Egypt. This is Exodus 19, and I'm going to start this at verse 1. In the third month, when the children of Israel was going forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. But they were departed from Rephidim, and were coming to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. And Moshe went up to Elohim, and Yahweh called him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say unto the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure to me above all the people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto the children of Israel. And in Exodus 20, this is when the Ten Commandments was given to our fathers to give to the world. And let me read some things out of this and see what Yahweh had to say. It says, And Elohim spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. So it's obvious that Elohim knew that man was going to make gods to himself, which man had already been doing. You shall not make with me any graven image of any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water underneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them, nor serve them, for I, Yahweh, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity upon the fathers unto the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. And today when we look around, even in many churches, there are statues of men, especially one that people love to deal with, and that is a statue, well, two really. That is a statue of who they call Jesus, or Jesus if you prefer, and the statue of Mary. These things are very prominent among men simply because Yahweh has given them up to do those things. But if you see, he told us not to do these things. These were the very reasons that we were kicked out of the land and brought over here as slaves in this country here, simply because we as a people worship the gods of the nations instead of doing what the scripture had told us to do. We allow men to conjure up verses and phrases that tell us what Yahweh says instead of interpret it rather, instead of us reading the same word. But let me read something to you out of Isaiah chapter 42, and I'm going to start this at verse 13 and see what's going to happen, what has happened to our people and what's going to happen to man. It says, Yahweh shall go forth as a mighty man. He shall stir up jealousy like a man of war. He shall cry, yea, roar. He shall prevail against his enemies. Why? Because his enemies worship pagan deities. I have long time holding my peace. I have been still and refrained myself. Now will I cry like a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour at once. I will make waste mountains and hills and dry up the herbs, and I will make the rivers islands, and I will dry up the pool. And I will bring the blind by a way that they knew not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them, and not forsake them. They shall be turned back they shall be greatly ashamed that trust in graven images. They shall say to the molten images, you are our gods. Hear you deaf, and look you blind, that you may see. Who is blind but my servant? Deaf as the messenger that I sent. Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as Yahweh's servant? Seeing many things, but you observe not. Open the ear, but you hear not. Yahweh is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. But this is the people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes and hid in prison houses. Therefore pray, and none delivered for a spoil, and no one saith restore. Who gave Jacob for a spoil, and Israel to the robbers? Did not Yahweh against who we have sinned? For we would not walk in his ways, neither were we obedient in his law. Therefore he has poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of the battle, and has set him on fire round about, yet he knew it not, and it burned him, yet we laid it not to heart. And even today, the things that we practice under signs and symbols, especially in the church. The symbol of the church today, especially the Protestant church, the symbol of that church is a cross. And truly, a cross is a graven image. And when we look over into the Middle East, we see crescents, and that also is a graven image. But let me continue with some things that is taking place here. It says, however, the Gentiles of Christianity, the Arabs of Islam, the Asians of Buddha, and the Africans still honor their man-made gods in prescribed ceremonies. We just don't do the research to find out what all of the rituals are that we go through. Some even have a human god they name the Dalai Lama. However, the Catholic Christians even give sainthood to men and women. They deitize as saints, and people make statues and do honor and service and pray unto those statues. They have statues and graven images in the churches, in their homes, on their cars, on mountains, and many other conspicuous places for all the whole world to see. But let me read something to you here out of the book of Deuteronomy, and find that way we can find out why the nation worship all these pagan deities. We just follow. We don't know. We just follow. We don't never start anything. We as a people, we are followers. This is in Deuteronomy chapter 20, and I'm going to start this at Deuteronomy chapter 20, and I'm going to start this at verse, I think I'm going to start this at Deuteronomy chapter 20, and verse 15. It says, and Yahweh your Elohim will raise up unto you a prophet, talking about the Messiah, from the midst of you, of your brethren, like unto me, unto him you shall hearken, according to all that you desired of Yahweh your Elohim in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear the voice of Yahweh my God, neither let me see his great fire anymore. So Yahweh raised up the Messiah, and brought that Messiah and gave him to our people. And what did our people do? Our people crucified him simply because they didn't want any righteousness in the land. As we see, the very things that Yahweh warned our people against, man has perpetuated in the earth. Why? Because of man's free will, and they have their teachers that were sent out to instruct them in the word into captivity. But let me read something else here out of the book of Zechariah. Let's see what the prophet Zechariah had to say that's going to take place once the Messiah returns back to this earth. We have to understand that everything that Yahweh said that people were going to do, when you look out on the earth today, what you see is the paganism that Yahweh told man that he would be about. Now in Zephaniah chapter 2, and I'm going to read verse 10 and 11, it says, Yahweh will be terrible unto them, for he will famish all the gods of the earth. and men shall worship him, everyone from his place, even all of the isles of the heathen. Ye Ethiopians also, ye shall also be slain by my sword. So he goes off to tell the nation that they are in paganism and that they need to do the things that he said do in order to be saved. But when we listen to man don't believe that he has to deal with these things. This is why we have so much paganism to deal with. Throughout history, man has made paganism so subtle that they are commonplace and easily accepted among men. And here in the book of even here in the book of Revelations, in Revelations 13, we can very well see that some things are going to take place on the earth where man will actually worship another man and an idol that they are going to raise up the same way we do today. This is why we have the Statue of Liberty and blind justice and so forth, simply because man has chosen to do the things that man wants to do instead of what Yahweh wants to do. But let me read some things that's going to take place in the book of Revelations here. Revelations chapter 13, and I'm going to start this at verse 1. And I stood upon the sands of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. When you get in Revelations 12th chapter, you find out that these symbols here are the markings of Satan, and that marks the kingdom that he brought up on the earth. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and the feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So this last empire that's going to come up on the earth, Satan gave him his power, his seat, and great authority in the earth. And I saw one of his heads as it was wounded to death, and the deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Well, Rome fell in 476 AD when it received the deadly wound, and now here it is, they're putting this whole thing back together again. Verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? And who was able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 3.5 years. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life, that was slain from the foundation of the earth. Verse 12, and he doeth great wonder, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceive them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by the sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image should both speak and should cause as many as would not worship the beast should be killed. So we can very well see man has been off into his paganism from the beginning, and man has not changed from the time that our people, from the time that he was on the earth, even through the time that our people went and taught them, because truly the things that man is dealing with today, Paul and the apostles did not teach those things. Today, we can plainly see that the Christians of Europe are becoming an amalgamation. They call it the New World Order. But in actuality, it's to revive Holy Roman Empire, and the next pope will cause the world to serve the empire and cause mankind to worship an image that man will create. No longer would they worship the gods they said were on Mount Olympus, and later named planets, days of the weeks, and months after, but the world will worship a man and an image that man will make. But today, man still honor the Titans, the Olympians, the signs of the zodiac, And on Sunday, Christmas, and Easter, they do honor Lucifer, the angel of the sun. And let us not forget to include Cupid on Valentine's Day and Janus when they honor that pagan god on the 1st of January. They also have a fund today called the Janus Fund. Space programs called the Saturn, the Apollo, and the Gemini, and have crosses, crescents, statues, and many other images such as Miss Liberty and Blind Justice for us to deal with. But let me go back here in the book of Daniel, in the 2nd chapter of Daniel, and read some things that Daniel prophesied to King Nebuchadnezzar that was going to happen. Now Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and what he saw was a great image. And then the angel Gabriel was sent to Daniel for Daniel to interpret this thing to Nebuchadnezzar. And let me read what Daniel said when he interpreted the dream. It said, "You, O king, saw, and behold, a great image. The great image whose brightness was excellent stood before you, and the form thereof was terrible. The image head was of fine gold, his breasts and arms of silver, his belly and thighs of brass, and his legs of iron, and his feet of iron, and partly clay." Well, when you look at these things, these are the 4 empires that would come up on the earth. "You saw it until the stone was cut out without hand, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and of clay, and broke them in pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, the gold broken into pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth." So as we see, Yahweh had already told us about these pagan deities and things that man would worship. But as a people, we have a tendency not to want to believe these things, and not to believe that man worship pagan deities. But here in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4, and I'm going to start this at verse 15. Verse 14 it says, Deuteronomy 4 and 15 says, "And Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you might do them in the land whether you go over to possess it. Take therefore good heed unto yourselves, for you sow no manner of similitude in the day that Yahweh spoke unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire." Yet today we have similitudes of various gods that came up out of the mouth of men. Verse 16, "Lest you corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female." Well, even the Catholic Church today, they deitize men and women, and people pray to those deities that man has created. Verse 17, "The likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air, the likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And least that you should lift up your eyes into heaven, and when you see it, the sun, the moon, and the stars, even all the host of heaven, should be driven to worship them and to serve them, which Yahweh your Elohim has divided to all the nations under the whole heaven." So we can very well see that the nations do these things because Yahweh gave them up to these things. But to you, O Israel, it's not so. Yahweh made himself manifest to us. He gave us his word, and he passed down his word through our fathers, the prophets, and the teachers and the apostles and disciples of the New Testament. And he gave these things and left these things for us so that we could find him, so that we wouldn't worship the gods of the nation. But as we can see, we have gotten to the place to where we don't do what Master say. Whatever Master worship, then this is what we worship. And when you check out the Olympics, you even find out yourself that Hillary Clinton dedicated the Olympics to a pagan deity named Apollos. And people sing song to him and so forth and so on. And today we still honor those same Olympians, and this is why we have so many gladiators and so forth out there. And when you look at the things, the rituals and things that many people go through, and go back and check the history of these various gods, I'm very sure what you'll find is that many of these things that we do today, these things are strictly tied up in the paganism of the nations that we are in captivity among. So don't be deceived by mankind, and understand what you're dealing with when you go to church on Sunday, because truly Saturday is the Sabbath day. Understand what you're dealing with when you celebrate Christmas and Easter, because these are pagan rituals that was practiced by man long before the Messiah was even born. So understand these things. In order to understand these things, you must read these things. But as the scripture says, how could they learn except they have a teacher? And how can they teach except unless they be sent? So take the time to read your book and visit the New Covenant Congregation of Israel and ask the questions that you have so that you can get an answer to these things, because truly our salvation is on the wings of the wind. But yet and still, man still has all of his deities waved around every place. Man is still doing what man wants to do instead of what Yahweh told him to do, and instead of what our fathers made manifest into the nation. This is why the Gentiles have total control of Christianity, simply because they know that Christianity is the worship of the angel of the sun, who is the adversary of the devil. So remember these things and do some research on these things, and I'm sure that you'll find that these things are created by man, and that this is why sin is called crime is running rampant in the earth today, because Satan truly is the prince of this earth. This has been the Watchman. Welcome and peace.